Hello and welcome to Tea Break Film Reviews. My name's Michelle and today I'm going to be looking at A Quiet Place Part 2, directed by John Krasinski. After waiting for more than a year for this film to finally be released in cinemas, my expectations were raised pretty high, and I'm happy to say that it delivered. So hold your rocket and hear me out. Before we start, please consider subscribing to help support this channel so we can keep making videos like this. Though I will be referencing specific scenes and describing how the main plot lines interact with each other, I will not be giving away any plot points or important action, so I would consider this video spoiler-free. A Quiet Place Part 2 begins by showing us the events of Day 1 when these horrifying creatures first appeared. After that, the action picks up where the first film left off, with the Abbott family forced out of their home and into the wilderness. The most outstanding feature of this film and its predecessor is how they use sound and consequently how they deliver information. The alien creatures that are threatening civilization hunt their prey using noise, and this trait enforces certain rules within the narrative and dictates how our characters have to behave in order to survive. In other horror films or films in general, the characters normally have the luxury of being able to shout, discuss their plans openly, and use loud weapons to kill their enemy, but that is not the case here. In any screenwriting 101, you're often told to show things rather than tell them directly, but the balance is shifted almost entirely to the former out of necessity in A Quiet Place. There is, as anticipated, a lot of silence, which makes the jump scares even more effective when they come, but less of a horror cliche because it makes sense within the story. Music is used at certain points to give an emotional boost and to keep the pace flowing in an engaging way. We are only told things directly in moments where the characters can speak under the cover of louder noises, or when they communicate through sign language. Mostly, however, we are shown things, like how they put sand down and walk barefoot, how they replace Monopoly pieces with woolen figurines, and how they use leaves instead of plates and eat food with their hands. These details are evident in both films. In the first one, we are mainly confined to the Abbott home, but in the second one, as our characters are forced to venture out into the world, we get to see how other people have adapted, including using noise and the creatures as a weapon. This expansion of the world has been handled very effectively, making it logically feel like a part 2 rather than a distinct sequel. This expansion continues in the motivations of the characters, whereas in the first film the family was mainly focused on their own relatively short-term safety, say a year or a couple of years. In the second film they decide that they need more. As one of the posters for the film says, silence is not enough. The distinction between the two films is made when the characters shift from being on the defense to the offense, and this happens in the scene that bridges across both films. There is also a secondary shift between generations, from the parents to the children, whose actions have far more valuable consequences than in the first film, especially Regan. In terms of characters, we are introduced to a couple of new people, including Cillian Murphy's character Emmett, who occupies this place between being a good guy and a bad guy. I would have loved to see a little more of the latter as, and I don't think to anyone's surprise, he ultimately helps more than he hurts. The aforementioned flashbacks are used to introduce him, his family, and his friendship to Lee, but I am still a little conflicted as to whether they were really necessary. The flashbacks don't reoccur regularly throughout the film, nor do they show different days, so they felt quite thrown in. That said, perhaps revealing Emmett only when the Abbott family stumble upon him would have made the audience get out of the action a little bit. But I think it would have been better. I think this would have heightened the stakes more, and then the reveal that they actually know each other would have been just as effective, perhaps even more so. Regardless, he is a good addition to the Quiet Place world and makes an entertaining sidekick for Regan. The acting across the board is fantastic, as it was in the first film, and I especially enjoyed Emily Blunt's performance. She perfectly expresses the difficult balancing act between being a normal person in a scary situation and a brave mother, trying to both comfort her children and fight these creatures. One thing that didn't work quite as well for me was how divided the story became between the two pairs, Regan and Emmett, and Evelyn and Marcus. In the first film, the story was very neatly constructed, with all the characters breaking off at certain points but collecting for the finale. In the second film, the characters became divided and remained that way up to the end. Superficially, the two plotlines were connected because one side was waiting for a signal from the other. This is fine, but for me it is not enough to remedy the separation that was acutely felt as these two plotlines were developing. What did remedy it is that when the signal is given, the characters of Marcus and Regan connected in terms of emotional growth. Their actions, happening at the same time in different locations, mirrored each other and symbolized how this new generation is going to handle these creatures from now on, having become fed up with just staying silent. This film was meant to be released last year. In fact, the UK went into lockdown only a couple of days before its release, and whilst some films that were due for cinema release decided to go with the streaming option, A Quiet Place Part 2 held out and waited through the lockdown, and I think this was a great decision. Critic Eric Davis from Fandango calls this film the experience that theatres were made for, and I wholeheartedly agree. Yes, you may hear a few popcorn crunches and fizzy drink slurps, but the overall atmosphere within a theatre is perfect to allow you to immerse yourself in a thrilling story such as this one. So if you are wondering whether to finally leave your home and experience the cinema again, then this film will leave you happy that you did. Just make sure to wash those hands, wear a mask, and follow those social distancing guidelines, for everyone's sake. Overall, A Quiet Place Part 2 delivers more of what the first film offered, but bigger, from the locations to the amount of characters to the outlook these characters have towards the future. It is well paced, well written, superbly acted, and captivatingly tense. It is the perfect film to enjoy now that cinemas have reopened. Thank you for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want to see more videos, and comment with your thoughts on the topic. If you had to live in silence, what noise would you miss making the most? For more film content, feel free to follow us on Twitter, Letterboxd, and Facebook. Links in the description. Otherwise, this has been Tea Break Film Reviews. My name's Michelle, and I hope you have a great day.